And Kiran, anything else? Any other announcement?
No, I was just going to request everybody to keep their phones on silent while we are in the meeting on their own. It would be appreciated. That's it. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. And just to set the agenda for this meeting, most of our meetings start with we have one person who introduces a topic and talks about it for some time. But the most important part of it is the discussion. So I would request every one of you, as Parul talks and once she finishes, to have your questions, your ideas, your comments ready. And also would request the leaders of social venture partners to feel free to chime in with their ideas, with their thoughts, because it's for us an important area to understand both individual philanthropy, which is what SVP is all about, and of course what SVP is doing in Pune and India. Because clearly, as you heard, Rotary Riverside is doing a whole bunch of work in social work. And three of our leaders in the social work arena, Neeru Goel, who of course is a founder member of SVP in Pune as well, and Rohit, who has been active in this area, and Umeshji, who's our president designate, who also is leading multiple activities, are all here on this. So it'll be a good discussion to have. So let me not give you a formal introduction to Parul. I think Rotarian Ipsita Nayak will do that. But before that, because Parul's career is very, very intertwined with my own, so I must give you a personal introduction. Because when I took over as CEO of Zensar in 2001, Parul actually joined Zensar soon afterwards, and it was her first job. She just finished her master's in marketing and communications and joined us in marketing, was very active in our CSR responsibility area. And then, of course, left to start a family. And I pulled her back into work by saying, SVP, Social Venture Partners in Pune needed a head. And she came in as general manager and is today the CEO of SVP Pune. So I'm always delighted to see Parul. And as you know, in the last year or so, we've been showcasing quite a few young people, including Parul Ganju, who's now a member of our club and on the call today. And many young people who are doing extremely good work in Pune. And I think Parul Vaidya is very much one of them. So look forward to the discussion. Over to you, Ipsita, maybe for the introduction.
Yes. Thank you, Ganesh, and I hope everyone can hear me. Good morning to everyone, and thank you for joining this discussion. Just to quickly kind of introduce this topic of individual philanthropy, most of us, I think, are not, unaware of, philanthropy as such, and almost everyone does something or the other within capacity. Okay, but most of the time it ends up being that we end up making a donation to our favorite charity, or sponsor sponsor a child, or sponsor a project, etc. But SVP actually believes that as individuals we can contribute much more to the social sector than just money, and it's about being able to bring in the capabilities that we have from different walks of life, whether we are in management, whether we're in business, or we are in art, etc., to really bring that capability and help the the various NGOs and not-for-profit organizations to scale by bringing in principles of management, bringing in principles of how to do finances, how to look at building a vision, look at building scale, etc. And that in terms of individual philanthropy is probably a bigger contribution than anything else, because that is where you have an involved as in you're doing involved philanthropy, and not just as a doing it as a bystander by giving some money, etc., but you're actually genuinely contributing to a social cause, and that is what individual philanthropy is about. But that and most of us are aware of this subject, but we don't know how to go about it, and that's where organization like SVP comes in. And Parul has been with SVP for nearly 5.5 years, and she's currently the CEO of the Pune chapter. She's been driving it. I personally was part of SVP for 2 years, so I've seen Parul and the way she has she has been working so religiously with different kinds of NGOs, identifying them, working with them, connecting different SVP partners to these NGOs based on their interest and what they could actually contribute to these NGOs. And as a result, it becomes a marriage made in heaven for all of us. So that without, I don't want to, talk too much about it, because I think Parul would be a better person to talk about individual philanthropy. So over to you, Parul, and looking forward to your session.
Thank you, Ipsita. Thank you, Ganesh. And thank you everyone for joining in. Pleasure to be here. And it's really nice to have all of you here at 8:30 in the morning. Okay, very quickly, I'm just going to structure my talk in 3 broad parts. Essentially, Ganesh has already talked about my transition. And so I'm going to just quickly talk about the transition. Then my 6 years in the social sector, what have I seen? What have I noticed? And what really works, and a little bit about what individuals can really do, how can they contribute, and a little bit about SVP and how SVP is trying to help individuals do this better. So yeah, my transition, I've done my post-graduation from the Pune University in Marketing and Communications. So very different from what I'm doing today. And I guess, like Ganesh said, that the seed of working in the social space started back in Zensa when I started volunteering with the community, going to the community, seeing what the way people live, what are the challenges. So it all started there. And I've been very, very fortunate to be mentored by a few people, obviously Ganesh being one of them, Rati and Meher. So all three being very big philanthropists themselves. And of course, Neeru here. So I've been learning from everybody I've interacted with bit by bit. And probably that is what is structuring the way I function and the way SVP Pune functions. I'm still learning. I have Govind Iyer, I have Rachna Rathi, my chairs in SVP. They're here on the call. So I'm thankful for everyone to be helping me out in my journey. 6 years in the social sector have actually given me an opportunity of working with a lot of complex social issues. I have worked with over 15 nonprofits within Pune and interacted with multiple organizations across the country, seen the kind of work they do, seen the kind of complex issues they are trying to solve. And it's phenomenal how they take up these issues. And I guess all of us have a role to play. I guess all of us have to come forward and support these organizations, help them in doing what they're doing, because these issues are not easy. Here we are trying to change lives of people. We are talking about mindsets of people. We are trying to get them out of the poverty they've lived in. So these issues definitely aren't easy, and they can't do it alone. They need people like us. They need resourceful people like you to come forward and help them. While all of you are doing a lot in Rotary, I heard a few things that you're doing, supporting blind girls. So these things are phenomenal. All support that we can give people is necessary. However, there is something which individuals can do better, which is going beyond just check writing, which Ipsita mentioned, and actually getting your hands dirty on ground. When I say getting your hands dirty on ground, I don't mean that you actually have to go and volunteer and do things yourself, because sometimes that's not possible for people. So what do you do? How can an individual really help? Essentially, very simple steps. Collaboration is key. Collaborative action is what really makes a difference. All of us are probably doing little by little separately in our own ways. How can we all come together? How can we collaborate in whatever we are trying to do? How can we solve problems collaboratively? Because when you come together, when you collaborate, the impact is far larger. Okay, you might be doing great things in a silo all alone by yourself. But when you come in a group, when you contribute towards in a group, not just the money, but collective intelligence, the impact is far larger. So collaborative action, simple solutions. I think sometimes we forget that very complex problems can also have some simple solutions. We often try and put this jigsaw puzzle together and find complex answers to big issues. But sometimes answers are really simple. For example, when we were working in an NGO called Anjuman Islam, largely Muslim girls and very young girls who've been divorced, left by their husbands, have nowhere to go. We tried a lot of big things with them, training karo, ye karo, all of that. But we realized all that they wanted was to be heard. Okay, the first step to supporting them was being heard. And I think that's the most simple and the most effective way we could make a difference. The minute we opened ourselves, we opened to listening to them, the things started getting better. We could make a larger impact. So sometimes I think simple solutions is what people need to think of individually and collectively. Then what else can an individual do? I think courage is something that an individual should have, courage to go out and make that difference. Don't sit on the sidelines, try and get your hands dirty, do things for yourselves. Don't shy away from saying, oh, how can I do that? Everybody can do everything. If you have acceptance, it's very easy for you to go out and do something yourselves. So go out in the community, try and support people. It's very, very easy. I would say the second is then, the fourth is then work on the issue, work on the core of the issue rather than the symptom of the issue. Why is something happening? Why are these people needing the support they are needing? Try to solve that in whatever way we can, which is generally called systemic change. I know the word is really big, systemic change, but if everyone thinks towards bringing the systemic change, I think that can happen. So as an individual, and all of you have the expertise to think about how can we bring systemic change. So think towards how can we solve the root cause of the issue versus, solving the symptom of that problem or whatever is the byproduct of the problem. Don't solve the byproduct, hit on the root cause. What else can an individual do? Innovation. I think innovation is very, very important. And I must give you the example of Neeru here. As part of SVP, she was working with a project called Home Chefs, which was done by an NGO called Vaidya Foundation. And you can ask Neeru, what would she do? I mean, something really amazing, but she actually used her knowledge of Kaizen in Home Chefs. Okay. So for some, it will be like, how do you bring Kaizen in Home Chefs? How do you do that in a kitchen? Or how do you do that in cooking? But she did that. How do you really use the principles of Kaizen into the kitchen? Reduce waste, improve efficiencies, improve production. All of this actually happened. And the women really learned all of this. Neeru didn't have to go and tell the women in the community कि ये Kaizen है और मैं आपको Kaizen सिखा रही हूँ. No. All she had to do was Kaizen principles applied here. ये drawers ऐसे set करो, ये चीजें ऐसे रखो, ये चीजें ऐसे करो. Super innovation. But that worked brilliantly. And today, Vaidya Foundation, the Home Chefs program, then went on to get funded through GTT Foundation, RBL, and is doing phenomenally well today. SVP no longer funds them, but they are doing very, very well. The women are doing very well. So these are some simple things that an individual can do. Now coming to SVP, what does SVP really do? So SVP is actually an engaged philanthropy model, a networked model, which helps individual do all of these things that I just mentioned. Do all of these things better in a more structured manner. So SVP started back in 2012 in India. It's a US-based model, started from Seattle, then brought here in 2012 by Ravi Venkatesh, Ganesh, Govind, all of them are on the call here. The first chapter was Bangalore, then came Pune, Mumbai, Calcutta, Delhi, Hyderabad, and Ahmedabad. So 7 chapters today in India and doing really, really well. Over 250 partners across the country, individual philanthropists, engaging with nonprofits. We worked with over 45 NGOs across the country right now. And recently, we just had something phenomenal, which was called Fast Pitch. And we raised over 2 crores in just 2 hours. And like I said, money is one piece, but the bigger piece that SVP really brings in is capacity support. In normal terms, when we say capacity support, all that I just explained is something which comes under capacity. So individuals like Neeru, like Ganesh, like Govind, like Sashi, so many of them on the call today, really engage with non-profits themselves to see how can we really make a change in that non-profit, which is long lasting. So rather than really just helping the beneficiaries on the ground, which of course is a bigger thing, and we do that, how can we help the non-profit so that they can make a larger impact in the society? How can we solve their issues? Things like finance, things like HR, things like strategy. Now, all of these are things that all of you do in your own businesses, on your own organizations. But we often forget that a non-profit is also an organization. It's a non-profit, non-money making organization. But at the end of it, it's an organization. It has all the pieces that any other big organization has. And so all the pieces have to be working together. And how can they work together well is something that SVP tries and supports the NGO with. So for instance, if somebody is really good with finance, we will match make the finance person with the NGO which requires financial support in terms of structuring their finances. So the person in the NGO can learn how to do finance better. The idea is not to do their finances for them. The idea is not to teach the person how to fish, but the idea is actually to help the person, the idea is not to help the person by giving him the fish, but the idea is really to help them learn how to do fishing so that even if we are not there, the person can still go ahead and do it. So essentially what we try and do is support the organizations for a period of a 3-year, where we try and bring a systemic change within the organization. So when I say within the organization, if the organization is lacking, say, a certain systems, we will try and put those systems in place. If the organization is lacking a good strategy, say a 2-year plan or a 5-year plan, we will support the organization with that. So when I say we will support them, it does not mean that we will overpower the nonprofit and change the way they work. No, that is not why we support them. The idea is how can we really strengthen what they do to another level? How can we make them better? How can we make them scale more? So that's essentially what SVP partners do. Partners are the donors to SVP, and they are the ones who actually engage with nonprofits. So that's essentially the SVP model. And today we are, so the person who founded SVP in Pune was Ganesh, of course. Then Meher was the chair, Meher Padamji. Then came Rati Forbes, and now the current chair is Rachna Rathi, who's on the call with me. So it's been a great journey seeing SVP grow in Pune. We started supporting one NGO back in 2014 called Jagruti Seva Samstha. We started with training 25 girls. Today, we have exited the project. We no more fund Jagruti. However, Jagruti has been funded by Bajaj, a bigger CSR, a much, much bigger CSR, with an amount of 52 lakhs. So we have actually done what we were supposed to be doing. We have trained people in Jagruti. We have opened their minds. We have given them the connects. We have made them sustainable in a way, in the manner that they can go out, raise their own funds, and be independent. Necessarily not something that we want to do on a long-term process. The idea for us is to do the seed funding for the organization, is to help the organization grow, scale to a certain point, and then let them fly so that they are on their own and they can flourish. So that we've done very, very successfully with Jagruti, Idea Foundation, which I mentioned earlier, and many others we have in Pune. At present, we are working with about 9 NGOs within Pune, and we have about 42 donors, both corporate partners and individual philanthropists. Corporate partners, because we want corporates also to come in this networked mindset where everyone shares what they are doing. Everyone talks about what's working, what's not working, because another big, big chunk of working in the social sector is talking about your failures. Because unless and until you talk about your failures, unless and until you discuss what does not work, you will never be able to correct it. And you will never be able to stop wastage. And I know Neeru will agree with me, wastage is very, very important to be cut down. By wastage, I mean, do not make the same mistake someone has already made. Learn from the mistake someone else has made, so you don't fall in the same trap of doing that. Which is why people coming together, sharing their spaces, sharing what work they are doing in the NGO sector becomes very, very critical, so that nobody is going and making things which have already been done, mistakes which have already been done. In fact, what we can then do is come together to strengthen what works. So for example, in Pune, if we see that a particular way of waste management is working, can we then take it from one area to the other area to the other area? And necessarily, it does not need to be done by the same person. A Rotary Club project, which probably has worked in Riverside, can be replicated all across Rotary clubs because it has worked in one club. It has worked in one community. There is a good chance it will work in other communities also. So try and bring things together is what SVP really believes in. It's all about being open. It's all about being accepting to what learnings bring in, what situations bring in, and how individuals can support. And when I say individuals supporting the nonprofit, I must bring in here that it's not always that people who are the donors or people who are experts in their fields will learn. It's also the other way around. We learn a lot from the nonprofits. So it's a cross-learning process. It's a bridge between the for-profit world and the not-for-profit world. I can vouch for many, many people in my partner base who really, really come forward and say, oh I've learned so much during the process. It has opened my eyes to so many things. So when you move forward, when you come forward, when you dig deep, when you really go out, not sit on the sidelines and do something yourself, you learn a lot. It opens many, many doors for you. So that's essentially what SVP tries to do. It tries to help people like you become better philanthropists, actually work in the communities, but in a structured manner. So when I say structured manner, we have our processes. We do a very, very strict due diligence of nonprofits. Nothing happens without a digging deep due diligence. Once the due diligence is done, then the funding comes in. Once the funding comes in, then also comes in the reviews. We have very, very strict review mechanisms. Every 6 months, there is a review of the organizations. The organizations are reviewed basis what they had agreed to do, the impact they had agreed to create, and how have they fared on that. The reviews are done very, very stringently by our own partners, our own donors. So within SVP, we have various roles for people to play. People join us in grants committees, they join us in grants review committees, and they become mentors to nonprofits whom we call lead partners. So all this talk of bringing the change in a nonprofit, changing the mindset of a nonprofit, bringing about systems in the nonprofit is all done by our own donors, is all done by partners like you. And partners become lead partners. They are called lead partners because they are mentors to the organizations, mentors to the NGOs. They really do the work of helping the nonprofit scale up, sustain, and change. So these are the three ways this is the way the model works. People come into SVP, they become partners, they take up roles, they learn with their experience, they give their experience, they try and mold the organization. Like I said, Neeru did a lot. The reason I'm saying Neeru is because she's right in front of me and she's done a lot. So has Aditya. Aditya has been helping two of our NGOs, was helping two of our NGOs in Pune. He also did a lot. In fact, each one does what they have expertise in. So Aditya has great networks. He has great connects. So he brought in the funding for us. Neeru has operational efficiencies. So she was helping nonprofits bring operational efficiencies. Everybody matches what they can bring in. Everybody does what they can do best and they give it to the nonprofit. So that's what we do at SVP. And in Pune, we are now growing. Like I said, 42 partners, 9 NGOs, and sky's the limit. There's just so much we can do. And while I've been invited here, I would be very, very happy to come work with Rotary, see the work Rotary has done, and see how we can collaborate and do things better. When I said collaborative action, I really mean how can we do collaborative action? Can we do some projects together? Can we fund a nonprofit which is doing really great work? Can we support them together, do larger impact? So that's essentially what I had to talk about. I'm done. I hope this was interesting enough for you to dig deep, dig further, ask me more, and probably think of coming to SVP as well.
Thank you, Parul. I guess the floor is open for questions right now, so I'll leave that to the end, everyone.
No questions? Was I too boring or was I too clear?
No, I have a question. Can I
Please.
say, no, Parul, it's like this, maybe you'll think me as a cynical, but you see the world and you see India, and when you see around, the picture is so bad. And you say, how many can you really help? Yeah, we help a few, we help 100, but we have crores who need help, So sometimes, you tend to give up, you say, I don't think it's just an ocean drop. I don't think I can make it, So what do you have to say about it?
So Anuradha, I will tell you something. I will not lie. I've also gone through this. But when you go to the community, when you actually see the people you have impacted, I think everything changes there. Okay. You might be a drop in the ocean, but when you go see the drop that has impacted the lives, you will come back far more satisfied, and you will come back saying, okay, if I've changed 2 lives, let me do 2 more. Because see, the world is too big. You're right. There are crores of people who need help. You can't change everything. But if you can change 2 lives, why not? You are privileged enough to change those 2 lives. Then why should you not? Okay. So that's the way I look at it. Whenever I feel disillusioned in any which way, I go back to the community. I see what I've done. I see if there has been any impact that I've been able to create. And when I actually see the smiles, and when the boys and girls come back and say, Didi ek photo lena hai, Didi ek photo lena hai, it does everything for me. I'm back trying to say, okay, if I've done 20, I will do 20 more.
Yeah. No, you're right. Thank you. I think we need to remain motivated, Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Can I add in one thought, if okay, Ganesh? So, Anuradha, I want to just share, this is Rachna Rathi. I'm the current chair of Pune SVP chapter. And on my way and on my path towards philanthropy and giving back. But when I started my journey, I was also as disillusioned, Anuradha, because I was walking all alone. I would just, support some children, write a few checks, and, anyone would say umbrellas dena hai, sheets deni hai, chaddar dena hai. That's what I did. But I used to be very demotivated that, what am I really doing? I'm giving off things here and there. Am I really impacting their lives? And that's when I got into this space, started networking with like-minded people. And when I joined SVP almost 5 years ago, almost as when Parul joined, I think I met like-minded individuals that helped me, motivated me, helped me to see beyond what I was doing. And that I was making an impact, and in a more strategic way, rather than just giving off things, but really making a difference. So I'm not going to repeat what Parul said, but that's the journey that I started walking on, and it's made a huge difference in my whole giving structure as an individual, as a foundation, as a family. So thank you, if that helps anybody.
I have a question, Parul. I wanted to ask, that, see, there's so many sectors of in philanthropy, right? Like from, there's so many areas that are there, right? You have, from rescuing women from prostitution to child issues to skill development to, like supporting blind children, etc., etc. So, typically what happens is when you first start start to think, okay, what do I want to do? You think of the worst possible, or what you think are people who are worst affected or who need help, etc. But that may not be the right place for everyone, right? Like we may not have the capability or the skill sets to deliver everywhere, right? So how do you choose which is the best place where you would be, most beneficial as an individual philanthropist? How do you choose which is the area for you?
So, Ipsita, to your point, I think it's a journey to begin with. You will not find your calling right at the first go. It will take some time. But it's important to keep exploring various areas where support is needed. And it's very, very critical to work in probably, say, 5 or 6 areas which you think are really close to your heart, and then identify that one, because it's not going to come easy. Like there are people who, have shifted gears from doing education to, animals, because they then realize, oh no, my calling is animals and not education. So it will take some time. It's a journey, it's a learning journey. And like you rightly said, sometimes we think that, the most affected or the worst affected is somewhere where I should help, but probably you're a complete mismatch in trying to help in that area. And so pick the area where you know that you would like, that you would find it your calling, and your expertise will really make a dent there. Where you don't understand, so for example, rescuing, I don't think, we don't even know how that process works, right? So, and it's a very, very complex process. There are multiple stakeholders there. There's government, there's a lot. So while you might be very, very deeply attached to the cause, you might not be able to add value to it. But at the same time, what you can do is probably you could go to a nonprofit which works with rescued women and look at the other part of it, which is the skilling piece. So once they have been rescued, what can we do with the women later? So even if you think that there is a very difficult cause and you can't do something there, find something which is allied to it, which is linked to it, and then maybe support. So I think that's the way you could go about it. Instead of just saying that, okay, I wanted to do X and I can't do anything in X, so I will do Y. Just don't do that. Don't give it up. Probably find an allied way which is connected to that piece. So at least you're still deeply doing something in that area. I think that's the way I would look at it.
Yeah, I have a question. Can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Parul, I understand that social venture partnering is doing a great work in collaborating with NGOs and growing them to serve the community. And it's a wonderful concept, wonderful work you all are doing. So I compliment you all for that. I understand, I've seen in the NGOs that the donors are mobilizing the fund, but the execution of the project, we generally, the NGOs do not put in the enough resources to manage the project, and thereby project is not being executed in an effective manner. Even the planning of the project, execution of the project, controlling even the contractor management, etc., is a big task which we do day in, day out in our businesses. But when it comes to NGOs execution of the projects, then we take it lightly, and the enough resource management does not go into the execution of the project, and thereby even by we do not spend the money of the donors judiciously, and we do not get the impact and the result of the project what it should come in an effective manner and impactful manner. So what would be your advice to NGOs to take care of this, or do you support for this kind of resource management of the and execution of the project also? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Jalan. Very, very good question, because it's a reality. It happens a lot of times. Most important is you have to make the nonprofit realize that the money is not going to come easy. Okay. Often what happens is because we want to give, we are very emotional about giving for a cause. We would probably just give, right? We think from our heart and say, okay, nahi, isko bahut zarurat hai, de do. Having said that, it's good to do that. You have to have an emotional bent of mind also. Having said that, don't make it very easy for the nonprofit to receive the money. You have to have certain processes in place. You have to have work plans. So we call it work plans. You can call project plans, whatever that is. You have to have project deliverables, project plans. They have to deliver on certain things. Money is also attached towards the deliverables. Okay. The minute you have deliverables in place and you say that your money will be attached to the deliverables. Jaise aapne kaha contractors, you will give the money to the contractor when he delivers what he's supposed to deliver, right? Similarly, you will talk to the nonprofit and say, okay, I'm going to give you 10 lakh rupees for, say, training of 200 people, for example. Your first 5 lakhs will come when you train 100 people. Your second 5 lakhs will come when you train another 100 people. So the first 5 lakhs, when you've given that normally comes as an advance. So when you've given that, make sure you're monitoring whether that 100 is happening or no. And the next 5 will only go when the first 100 is happening. Okay, so make sure you break it up. That is one way of doing it from your end, from a funder end. From a non-profit end, my advice definitely to non-profits, and something that SVP really talks a lot about, is resources. Don't cut down on resources. Often what NGOs do is पैसा बचाना है, admin expenses कम करने हैं, पैसा कम करो. Okay, so resources मत लगाओ. जो 2 आदमी है उनसे 10 आदमी का काम कराओ, नहीं तो low quality काम कराओ. That's typically
Exactly. I was having
that's
that
typically
point
what happens. But what we are trying to say, and what I really believe, is it should not be that way. An NGO is also an organization like any other organization. Unless and until you spend on your staff your own capability, you will never be able to deliver better. So I think it's about time the nonprofit sector really realizes this. The NGO sector works in that manner, which is why if you see a lot of the social sector today is changing a lot. A lot of professionals are coming in. A lot of new processes, technology is being used. Many NGOs are using technology efficiently and perfectly well. They've learned. A lot of professionals are coming. You will find a lot of MBAs working in nonprofits today. You will find a lot of communication professionals like me working in nonprofits today. So there are lots of professionals coming in trying to change this mindset. And in fact, even the founders of the NGOs have now realized that agar hame impact karna hai, scalable banna hai, and we want to sustain. Okay, this has to be a long-term thing. If we want to do all of this, we have to change. Sometimes आपको ऐसे भी NGOs मिलेंगे who will not change, जिनका mindset नहीं change होता है, वो वैसे ही काम करते हैं जैसे 30 साल पहले कर रहे थे. जो 30 साल पहले कर रहे थे वो आज नहीं चलेगा. You have to change with the times. So advice to non-profits, I mean, honestly, I'm no one to really advise a non-profit, too little in this space. But with whatever I've seen, I think non-profits have to change with the changing times, because the funders are changing. The funders are demanding different things. So with time, you have to give more, you have to deliver better. So I think processes is very critical. Spending on your own resources is very critical. And that would be my advice to nonprofits. Govind, you had
Thank
raised
you.
a-
And do you take such type of partnering with the social NGOs for meeting their resource management requirement?
Yes, we do. So when I said capacity building, we really support a lot on the capacity of the NGO itself. Whether it is funding HR, whether it's funding salaries of people, we do that. So Pune chapter has done that. The Mumbai chapter has done that in the past. Because once you're funding people within the organization, professionals who come in within the organization, it obviously makes a big change within the whole organization. Organization ka output utna hi better ho jata hai because you've hired better people, right? So we do support a lot of that. In fact, you have non-profits who need that kind of support, which is capacity support, non-financial. We would love to do that.
Thank you.
Govind, please.
No, it's covered. It was covered, Parul.
Okay, anybody else? Any questions?
Yes. Parul, congratulations for all the great work you've done with SVP. I work now in Thailand with some really grassroots nonprofits. So, these are the community-based setup that I don't think they even have the capacity to go for a fast pitch, for example. Basically, some very underprivileged community, they might just self-organize, and then they have one person that maybe it's more capable and become the leaders and help to, just develop something for the community. How about this type of, so what they want to do, it's really from themselves, right? So it's not a project plan that they can come up with, but more like, they want to do organic farming, for example, buy some seeds, so they have secure a piece of land so they can, grow some food to eat. So it's a really basic, very grassroots thing. So does SVP Pune work with a community like this, and how do you see this kind of community development?
So Lily, to your point, in fact, we work with a lot of small NGOs. In fact, one of the criteria that we have is we work with NGOs which are less than 2 crores. So 2 crores is about what, 20 million? So we work with NGOs which are smaller than that. Sometimes even organizations which are barely 25-30 lakhs. Their revenues are barely 25-30 lakhs. We've worked with really, really small grassroots organizations who exactly do what you are saying. So we work a lot with that. Of course, the kind of support they need is a lot more intensive, because the needs are far larger than organizations which are better placed, which are larger. But yes, we do work a lot with them. In Pune, in fact, where I am based, which is in Pune in Maharashtra, a lot of our nonprofits are really small.
Right. So how do you see their growth? Because they are kind of really limited.
It is. So which is why people like SVP, networks like SVP come into play, which is where they need a helping hand. They need people to open networks for them. They need people to open doors for them. They need, in fact, to the extent they sometimes also need a mindset change for their own self. Because often these nonprofits don't even think that they can do big. They don't even think that they can go beyond. They've set a limit for themselves and they work within that. They're like, okay, this is what. So if you ever listen to them, if you tell them, what is your funding requirement? They'll say 10 lakh rupees. They will not even think beyond, because they are only limited in that. They know they can absorb only that. So you have to really work with them to even make them think that, no, you can take 50 lakhs also and you can deliver. Okay. So that's something where the mindset change within the NGO is very, very critical. So that's also something that we try and do a lot.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we have time for just one more question, if anybody has a question in mind. Anybody? Right, then we'll move on. So now I'll ask Neeru Auntie, please, would you give us the vote of thanks? You're on mute, Auntie. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Kiran. I'm really happy that I am proposing a vote of thanks to you, Parul, for joining this meeting as a speaker and sharing with us valuable information about information about this individual philanthropy. I have known you for quite some time through SVP, of course. I have seen you working on different projects seamlessly. You are hardworking, target-oriented, and full of enthusiasm. And it's amazing that at this early age of yours, you can speak so confidently on a subject serious like today's. Our take back today, what you told us, that is a really impressive systematic support. I mean, I am all for systems, and you told us about collaborating system actions, collective intelligence, understanding the problems by listening deeply. I mean, courage to go out and listen to those people, go to the root cause, innovation, engaging deeply. So all these points we can understand very well because we are Rotarians and we belong to an NGO which is biggest in the world. So keep it up, Parul. All the passion with which you are working is amazing. You can do a lot more in coming years, I'm very sure. I, on behalf of myself and my club, Rotary Riverside, extend a formal vote of thanks to you for sparing your time early in the morning. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Neeru. This has come like a full circle for me. You know, when I joined SVP, Neeru also was a partner, and I was learning at that time, really new. And like I said, in my journey, I've picked up a lot from everyone I've interacted with. It's Ganesh, Meher, Rati, Rachna, Neeru, Govind. Everyone's actually really supported me in my journey. And of course, the biggest thing that I've learned, and the biggest thing from where I have learned, is the community. I think when I go to the communities, when I go to the jhoparpattis, what we call them, there is learning every time I go there. Every face there is a learning, because the way they spend their lives, the way they fight every day is phenomenal. We can't even think of the problems they fight every day with. So I think when I go there, that's where I pick up all my energies from. And yeah, every day is a new learning, interacting with people, and that's where I am. So thank you so much, Rotary, for having me. Life comes a full circle. And yes, thank you.